where we last left our hero, we were about to explore the Firelink Shrine. This is basically immediately after you finish the tutorial section. You watch those cutscenes, you're just dropped here. It's a very strange interpretation of like a safe hub. There's this guy, the Crestfallen Warrior. He was in Demon's Souls. He's been in basically every game since then. He's a cool dude. Basically just like atmospheric stuff. I'm not going to talk to him just because that's not what I'm interested in, like I said. But he's cool. I like him. So the first thing that you'll notice whenever you start going through this little area is that it's just really like complex for a hub. It's very strange. There's like these dilapidated buildings that provide what seems to be no purpose. The last thing that's the last tutorial thing, by the way, is just the simple hey. Yeah, just gestures. There's this guy. This guy is sells you miracles and stuff. You don't have anybody that sells you magic yet, which is kind of an interesting thing. I think it's just because the sorcerers start out with some pretty good stuff already, so they didn't want to like make it too easy. The magic already has a good leg up in this game. I'm sure they didn't want to add more. But yeah, the general feel of this area is just like open but seemingly safe. Kind of like a place that you can just kind of like take some comfort in, even though it is a pretty grungy and dilapidated area. The music that plays whenever you're here is like really nice. It's like some soft tune. It's one of my favorite tracks in the game. It's just nice, but it's also sad, and I feel like, you know, that's a pretty important thing. You come down here. There's this lady. She doesn't talk to you. You're getting like all this new information about mechanics, like reinforcing your Estus flasks, and whenever you sit down here, you get 10 Estus flasks instead of 5. So you think, oh, maybe it has something to do with her, which you would be right. You probably don't actually think that immediately. It's not too terribly clear. Basically, what I'm trying to get down to the bare minimum, and I'm mumbling, is that this place is weird and complex, and there's a lot to do, and most of it is not advisable, but it's available to you, and that's kind of like an important thing to a lot of people. The sort of non-linear way that this game goes about letting you explore the world. It's really cool. There's this. So I'm gonna go over the areas, I guess, that you have the potential to go to, and kind of just talk about, like, as a level 6 person with starting equipment, and, you know, granted 10 Estus flasks, but still just a wee old baby in this world. I'm just gonna try and go over like the potential areas that you can go, and like just how they are presented to you and stuff. So you come down here into this graveyard. This was the first thing that I think I did whenever I played, because it was like, because I think my meaning, or like my intention of it was like, oh, this is like the first area where you come across enemies, so obviously it's the first area that you're chosen to play in. That's not the case, as many people have probably gathered. It's pretty mean. These skeletons literally do probably the same amount of damage that the Silent Demon did to you. They're just nasty. if you do manage to kill them, you'll immediately see that they fucking just heal themselves and come back to life. So yeah, it's just really funny and interesting, and I hope people have a sense of humor about that sort of stuff, because one of the things that this game, I think, does really well is just has like a good personality about it. It tries to be funny about some of this stuff in like a very dark and cynical way. One of them being, you know, the fact that these guys chase you down here, they regen. It's just, and they just have goofy move sets. They're very like inspired by like Jason and the Argonauts sort of stuff. They look like that too. They managed to make like the stop motion CGI sort of style that movie employs. They tried to like do it here, and it's kind of funny. The second place that you have the potential to go to rather is down here. This is the first time that I can talk about a really vital part of this game, which is the fact that it is interconnected in streams, and there's no loading screens in between areas besides ones that aren't intrinsically connected, like this place. But for the ones that are, you just come to them, and it's really cool. It's really interesting how this sort of stuff happens. I mean, it's definitely not the first game that has an open world style, but it's really just cool to see it in action, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. To see this strange world that has seemingly, from a aesthetic standpoint, goes in so many different directions, like for it to be connected in like what seems to be pretty logical ways. It's pretty cool. So yeah, there's just these guys, some more of these fools. The difference is that they will start attacking you, and they're still pretty dumb. They have an interesting moveset though, which I can talk about later whenever we get to a more pressing area. So this is the first door that you'll probably come across in the game that would be unlocked if you have the master key. Luckily, I don't have the master key, so it doesn't let me go there, which means I'll just talk about it when I get there. But yeah, it is literally just a little area where you can just do that. It's one of the few instances where I feel like the master key provides something interesting, besides just like letting you skip areas that you don't want to play and whatnot. It lets you do. There are two bosses in this game that are required in order to like progress further on, and it lets you do one of those bosses first, which normally you can't do. Well, I mean, you can do, right? You can do, but it's different and it's weird. But that way, it's like pretty straightforward, and it's just pretty cool. It would be really hard, and probably pretty unpleasant. But hey, you can do it. I'm gonna leave on this note with this guy. I didn't actually bring stuff, so I'm just gonna die. But this highlights another pretty important part about this game, which is the idea that you come back to these bonfires and you keep the stuff that you take. So I still have this Firekeeper sword that I picked up, which makes the idea of like a quote-unquote suicide run, like something where you know that you're not going to come out of it alive, but you will benefit from getting a item or something out of it. It makes that feasible, and that's a pretty interesting thing. One might find it a bit too cheap, perhaps, but like, I don't care. It's fun, and it provides a personality to this game, so I say I keep it. So I'm gonna talk to this guy. I'm not gonna like speak too much about him. There's plenty of lore videos and stuff that you can watch.
Very well.
I'm most importantly doing it just so I can get a covenant. Covenants are weird in this game. They're probably like one of the, I hate to say it, but like sloppy things in this game. They're not.
Come again.
They're not like the most well integrated part of this game. The future games kind of fix them in various ways, but I still don't think they're perfect in those either. But this game probably does it the worst out of the set. And it's basically you just talk to an NPC, you join the Covenant, and then all of a sudden that's like the Covenant that you're with. Like it says here, Way of White. That was previously unaffiliated, I'm assuming. So yeah, like, and then you abandon covenants and it costs like a certain penalty. It's weird. This game, as opposed to Demon Souls, granted, was also a pretty experimental game by nature. It had a lot of unique things going for it, but this game definitely tried to do some really out there stuff, and some of it stuck, some of it stuck. Some of it stuck, some of it didn't. It really just depends on what you're talking about. I think for the most part it was successful. The Covenant stuff is kind of where I might start drawing the line in terms of success. The best thing I can say about it is that it at least was good enough for people to accept it. Because, you know, this game has PvP that people like. You know, that's cool. I can get down with that. So I'm going the third and the final one, the final direction that you can take is this one. This is the way to the Undead Burg. And the Undead Burg is, I'm gonna grab this real quick. The Undead Burg is kind of like the ideal way of starting this game. You can technically go about it in other ways, but you're not going to. You're not supposed to either. I think it's pretty noticeable that they wanted you to go this way. So yeah, with all that in mind, I'm gonna go there and then I'm gonna stop it at the next bonfire. Just to talk on this little encounter, I didn't really say anything about it. The guy that throws fire bombs, I think that's pretty interesting. The idea that there's like these enemies on the ground that you have to deal with, but then there's also the guy up top that you have to keep in mind. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's something that this game does a lot and does pretty well for the most part. Is just kind of like give you different. Oh, there we go. It just gives you like different dynamic combinations of enemies to kind of present you with like unique situations that you have to mentally digest, or else you'll die. Almost got that. Here, I'm gonna heal. These guys are pretty simple, but I was just trying to be flashy, and it didn't work, obviously. So I'm not gonna really talk about Undead Burg as of right now. There are some interesting things to point out, though. First off, just another tone shift, or atmospheric shift. The Undead Burg resembles the Firelink Shrine for the most part, but there's also, it just kind of like also presents the like city aspect of it. This is where like the level design of this game really lets its legs spread. Leg spread? No, that's not what I meant to say. Really lets its like it lets its shoes off and just really like stretches its legs out and presents itself in its best possible forms. These areas often tend to be really complex, architecturally sound, well, at least partially architecturally sound, like I said in the previous one. But they're also just like super cool and fun to navigate. Like for instance, you do all that stuff, you grab trash basically, which is pretty interesting, and then you just come down here and you've navigated a level, or at least a portion of a level, and it's just so natural and flows so well. It's super good, super good. I'm going to traverse this white light for a moment. I'm just going to pick up all this stuff, yada yada. This is some of the more of the downtime aspect of this game. Boo boo boo. So this part's pretty cool. Oh wow, he did something weird there. Normally he comes over here and does that, but huh, weird. So yeah, that was a drake, dragon. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it a dragon. I don't fucking care. I know there's a difference, but I also have a life to live, and I don't need to spend time processing the difference. But yeah, it's just like another one of those like super intimidating moments where you're like, oh god, what the... Is that something they expect me to deal with? And lo and behold, it is. But it's also another one of those things where as long as you use your head and you try and like just approach it from a sensible standpoint, then eventually you'll come to a conclusion, which is good. So yeah, I'm gonna end this here. I'm gonna light this bonfire. I'm gonna sit in the bonfire. I'm gonna level up one. Because I have one level up. I'm gonna go Dex. Really want to be beefy. Yeah, that concludes the Firelink Shrine / a bunch of other areas section.